what happened with the mud flood? I mean, I got to when I was over in Europe, a friend of mine mentioned. He said, "Have you heard about this mud flood across Europe?" I'm going, "Oh, what's this about?" You know, and he started showing me a few things, and then I saw some buildings in Leiden in the Netherlands, and there was a building happened to be quite close to where we were living, where I was staying in a town called Haarlem. They were renovating one house, and they dug it all out, and there they were. There's a whole nother layer below, with a doorway all going. The doorway looked like it went straight into the roadway beneath me. This was a whole section. And we're finding that this mud flood, we're finding houses in Russia, we're finding places in Italy, in Spain, in France, in Haarlem, in Holland. So it's gone right across Europe. And then you start looking at things like even in Australia and in America, there's places where there's certain buildings where there's like a step going down and there's a floor below ground. Why did they do that? Why would they build a house with a floor below ground like that? Mm-hmm. We're finding this mud flood everywhere, and we just look at this and think, this is normal. But why would they do that? Why would they ever build a building like that? You don't ever see anyone build a modern building, and they create this downward section for a floor below ground. They just don't do that. You don't build buildings like that. So are we to assume that that's the way they built them? Why would they do all that extra work and dig all that out and build those buildings lower like that so all the rainwater can flood down staircases into the lower levels? It doesn't make sense. So you're finding traces of this all over the world. So, what happened? And you start looking at all the forests and all the trees. And these are some of the old growth forests that we've got around the world are like 200 years old, 250 years old. Start looking at gravestones. We've got people checking graves in your local cemetery. See if you can find what the oldest date is on a grave. I can't find any date anywhere in the world, anywhere so far, that goes back beyond 1600s. So what's going on with all this sort of stuff? Then we found these bodies in France. The latest show that I did, 6 million people buried in these catacombs beneath France, all stacked like rolls of parchment, femurs and skulls, all these sigils in the walls. That's in 2 kilometres of tunnel. 6 million people, 6 million bodies stashed there. These tunnels go for another 30 kilometres underneath Paris. Hey, come to Paris, the city of love. Go and make love while you're walking over these catacombs of human bones and skulls and all these sigils. And what's going on there? So there's all sorts of stuff happening. You look at some of these ancient cultures, some of these ancient civilizations that are lying all over the world. These were huge, some of these places. You can look at an aerial shot, say in South America or in the Middle Americas. You'll find an old pyramid, like the shape of it, the foundations of it there. Look at it next to the town next to it, the city next to it, and this is just a temple, and it's twice the size of the city next to it. Jesus. And this is just a temple. So how big were these civilizations? How many people were actually here? And how many people are actually here now? What are the population figures? The population figures are all wrong. You start going down these rabbit holes and it just leads to this place, and you'd start realising that everything is wrong. And the mud flood was kind of what got me started on this again. It just started to fascinate me. And history was what first got me into this right back in the beginning when I was 8 years old. It's what made me start to question things anyway, because I realised the world was all messed up before I even went to school. And by the time I got to school, I was going, this is just demented. And then I found out about the pyramids when I was 8, and I went, something's seriously wrong with this situation. That was when I was 8 years old. So
I just recently... Sorry, Max, go ahead, continue, and then I'll jump in. Go ahead.
No, it's been kind of a hobby from me since I was 8, but then, it becomes a hobby all through your life, trying to figure out why the world's all messed up, and you start traveling. I was really fortunate. I became a musician, so I got to travel a lot, so I got to see all these exotic places and look at all this stuff, and you just realize everything is wrong. Yeah. And I kind of put that aside and became sort of more of a political activist when 9/11 happened, but then when I found this mud flood in Europe, it's kind of brought me back to my roots, and you start thinking, well, this actually makes sense. If you see what the 5G grid's doing and how they brought all this technology on so quickly, like the rise of technology has been phenomenal, really, since what we know as the Industrial Revolution and since the invention of the television, 60, 70 years ago, what we've done since that time is absolutely incredible. How could this be? But if you really think about the fact that they've changed history. They wiped out a civilization about 300 or 400 years ago, probably started about 1,000 years ago, probably finished about 200 years ago, then flooded the world, One guy in Russia thinks that he's traced it to around about 1840. This flood may have happened, and then just build it all up from there. That was the Industrial Revolution, you see, building up from whenever they flooded the place, however they did it. And I have not got all the answers to this. I'm just looking at the evidence and going where it takes me. This mud flood exists. All of these structures around the world appear to be around about the same age, and there appears to be every indication that there was a peaceful culture, there was a worldwide culture that existed on this earth as recently as 300 years ago, and we've been fed a complete crock of history, simply to create the timeline needed to justify the existence of this psychopathic, parasitic cacostocracy that is now masquerading as this international government system.
And you talk about the Matrix, man, like, just look at that movie, right? How many times was the world destroyed and recreated is what you're trying to say here, right? If they're...
They tell you, they give you hints and all this stuff. It's just how much people are prepared to think outside the box. You know, we've been lied to on every single level you can think of. It's just how big is the lie? And how much are people prepared to think outside the box and to realize that they really do not know anything about history. All we know is what we've been told in books. But if I've traveled the world, I've spent so many years traveling around, I've gone to so many places, and I've looked at all this stuff, and I'll tell you that the artifacts lying all over the world tell a completely different story to what you're reading in the books. You know, and we just fed this stuff, and we just believe it. We just take it all at face value. But it's not true. They're not telling us the truth on any level. It's just, how deep does the lie go? Wow. You know, how deep does the lie go? You go look through Europe, you'll find churches with Christian crosses and Islamic symbols on there. There was a worldwide religion. I don't know whether it was Christianism and Islam both working together or what it was, but it was a religion that complemented each other. We all lived in peace. You'll find even the battles that they tell you, oh, this was this crew battling this crew, and they give you the history, and then you look at the picture they've got, and you go, well, hang on, these guys are wearing different clothes and holding different symbols to what this dialogue is telling me. And you look at the picture and you go, actually, no, these are other people and these are other people. This is a whole different battle of different people, not what they're telling us. You know, so even the physical evidence is different to the dialogue that they're giving you to explain the physical evidence. They just say, oh, they just didn't know what the symbols meant. They were just, they copied coins from that country because they didn't know what coins meant. No, they knew what they were doing. You know, you don't have a Christian leader holding an Islamic symbol, not knowing it's an Islamic symbol. I mean, don't get real, you know. You don't have an Islamic guy holding a Christian cross, not knowing it's a Christian cross. You know, I mean, they worked together. It was a peaceful world that we lived in, and we all complemented each other more. See, all of these ancient civilizations that we think were thousands and thousands of years ago, perhaps they were, but did they get destroyed thousands of years ago, or did they continue to exist up until 200 or 300 years ago, and then got destroyed? And they changed timeline, pushed it all back 1,000 years, and said, it was thousands of years ago. Don't worry about it. This is what we've got now. It all came out of the Roman Empire, democracy, rah rah rah. Rubbish. It's all rubbish. The whole thing has been constructed.
All right, man. Let me get Stevie in here real quick. Give me your thoughts on what Max just had to say.
Yeah, there's no question that the official story of just about anything that we've seen in our stage. I mean, most people believe what history tells them. Most people believe that obviously the winners write their own revisionist history. We say something, Max, in wrestling that Billy Ray and Josh are aware of. It's all a work, meaning it's all an illusion. And it is something that, you know, we are meant to set up some sort of boogeyman, at least, I guess, in our country today and many others, to make us have some sort of strife. Like you said, we keep running and running and running and fighting and trying to struggle, and we don't even know why anymore. It's so insane.
It is absolutely insane.
It's all concocted by governments. I mean, all the wars that you have, it's just two governments facing off against each other. You know, the people of America go to war with the people of Iran. Well, people of America don't want to go to war with the people of Iran. The people of Iran don't want to go to war with America. It's the two governments facing off against each other. And then when they say, we're at war now, then they go and bomb all the people. They don't bomb the governments. They bomb all the people. It's a scam. The whole thing's a scam. If you didn't have the governments there, you wouldn't have a war. And the people of Iran, Iran wants to invade America. No, Iran is a landmass. It isn't going to get up and do anything. And the people who live there, they don't want to fight anybody. It's the government. two governments saying, hey, let's have a war so we can terrorize our people a little bit more, bring in some more regulations. And they all work together. If Iran and America were enemies, Iran wouldn't have two TV stations, one in LA and one in New York. Yeah, you wouldn't have a CNN station in Tehran. You know, they all work together. It's a criminal gang. The whole government system is a criminal gang. They all work together. Who's going to be the enemy this week? And then we'll bomb each other's people. You know, depopulation, that's what it's all about. And it's just a scam. The whole thing's a scam. If we didn't have governments, we wouldn't have war. We wouldn't have crime. We wouldn't have scarcity. We wouldn't have all the problems we've got if we didn't have governments. It's a scam, the whole thing.
That's one thing I want to ask you on the next side of the break. We got about 3 minutes before we go to the next side. But that's one thing I wanted to ask you that was on my mind. You talked about overpopulation and how the numbers might be fudged, and we may not exactly have billions of people on this planet. At least it's not what, you know, common sense indicates. Everybody's huddled in large cities, right? And that's why it looks like there's a ton of people, but in reality there's not. But then there's this eugenics agenda that's pushed. And you see the Georgia Guidestones, and you see the fluoride in the water and the vaccines and everything else, the GMO foods. And it's evident that they're trying to kill people, and they use it as population control. Everybody needs to die. If there is population control and there isn't that many people, like, where's the balance there, or what are we talking about exactly? But I want you to tackle that on the second side, because 3 minutes isn't going to be enough. Josh, Corey, want to get you in here before we go on a break. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking it's absolutely fascinating. I mean, it really does explain why all the lies and obfuscation of the past. They have to hide that power that we've given them, and they have to be able to maintain it. So if we figure out how it is that they've taken control, then they'll lose it pretty damn quick.
And I think that's the key, Josh, right? We've given them the power. It's us that have given them the power. I'm going to let you ride out these last 2 minutes with that, Max, and then tell everybody where they can find you for this side, and then we'll go over to the next side and finish the conversation. But we are the guys that give them the power. Go ahead, Max.
Well, we give them the power, but we don't know we've done it. You know, you do it by removing people of their history and of their culture. You know, if you a great quote by oh God, his name escapes me. I should know his name. Marcus Garvey. He said, "A man with no culture, a man with no history, is like a tree without roots." And that's true. That's what we've got. We don't know who we are. We don't know where we came from. We don't know what we're capable of. We don't know about all the great things we did. We believe that we've had a history of conflict, of confrontation with each other, and we haven't. We've all lived in peace and harmony, and this whole government system is a scam. Yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole to go down. It really is. But everything we've been taught is a lie, and it's provably a lie. People just have to realise that all the information that they're getting is doctored. It's all been controlled. It's all been contrived. We've got very, very little access to real information. Even when we got old books, we don't know how original they are. We don't know how much they've been changed, how much they've been corrected, is what they say. Corrected for historical accuracy, of course.
Max, we've got a minute left. Tell everybody where they can find you. Come on.
Yeah, you can find all my stuff on thecrowhouse.com. Everything's there, all the links, everything. There's nothing to buy. There's no subscriber section. It's all free. You'll find every link to everything that I do. It's all on thecrowhouse.com.
Awesome. Stevie, tell them where they can find you.
Well, you can find me at StevieRichardsFitness.com. The 12-week resistance band training program, the most affordable, accessible program out there with direct support from me and an awesome community on social media.